Hi, this is Dr. Matthew Connor with Full Life Medicine, and this is just going to be an off the cuff discussion about the health of our children and how America's kids and also places in the world have become increasingly unhealthy. And this all ties together to all the other things that I've been trying to talk about and discuss. And so hopefully, as time goes on, I can help put all this together and you can understand where I'm coming from and where this is headed. And I want to try to empower you with some solutions, not just bring up problems. And that's one of the things that started this talk in general, is that reading something in the local newspaper, and they're talking about an article that came out in the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, and it's just discussing how the fact that our American kids have become increasingly unhealthy. And I may look down at the article occasionally because I'm trying to reference some of it, but basically they're saying that the health of our children in America have just continued to deteriorate over the last 2 decades, and that they're having more likely to have chronic medical conditions, obesity, mental health problems. And we already know this, so it's not necessarily highlighting something that we don't know. But the interesting thing is, to me, at least as a society as a whole, and even as many individuals, we're not really doing anything to solve the problem. And I know that right now we're trying to in America, and there's the Make America Healthy Again movement. So people are actively trying to do it, but I think we're not quite getting there, and we're not taking even the small steps that can make big differences. And that's one thing at least I want to try to bring up here. This study that was done, it came from multiple data sources. It was a really large collection of data. It's not just somebody saying, hey, look, I'm looking at one little thing and seeing that the kids are declining in health. No, it's a big study that shows that it's a true statement. In other words, we can't stick our head in the sands anymore and pretend that this isn't happening. And essentially the kids are undernourished, they're over-medicated, as it says. They're talking about how a U.S. child in 23 is basically 20% more likely than a child about 15 years ago to have a chronic medical condition. And they're talking about how the kids are having more mental health problems. Not only that, they're actually having more pre-diabetes, and they're like younger kids, as I've mentioned before in some of my other videos, is that even at birth, kids are at risk, and they're 2 times more likely to die almost than kids in other high-income countries. And they're having sudden unexpected deaths. These are much higher. So all these are going up, and the deaths are going up, the diseases are going up. And one of the things that I wanted to, I like what they said in there is, the guy quotes it and says that, hey, these kids are like canaries in a coal mine, meaning that they are the ones who are showing that there's something wrong before maybe some of the other adults get as sick. They're the ones who have increased vulnerability, so they're showing what's happening in our society at large. And really, it's what's happening in the world in many places at large, but it's really concentrated and worse here than a lot of other high-income countries especially. So the interesting thing is, like most things happen, whether you're watching it on the news, whether you're reading it in some like local paper, or whether you're reading it in a journal even sometimes, what do they go to? Rather than going to solutions, they tend to talk about the fact that what is the president doing, and what are politics doing, and how was the study designed, and stuff like this. And it's stuff to just go around rather than get to the point. And I think one thing you'll understand about me is that, I tend to be pretty serious. I take this stuff seriously. Your kids matter. You matter. Your health matters. And the trajectory of your health and the health of your kids is all going to be going the same way that you set in place in your own household. So while we can't solve everybody's problem out here, we can solve some of the problems that are going on around us locally in our own homes. So if 1 in 3 kids right now, 1 in 3 as teenagers essentially have pre-diabetes right now, meaning they're going to be diabetic soon. And the question is why are all of these things happening? It's not the president's fault. It's not the science researchers' fault. In general, our society has been moving this direction for a long time, and now we're reaping the consequences of this. And that's basically in some of the foundational levels of our health. So what can we do now that's going to make the biggest difference in the health of our kids and in the health of ourselves and in the health of our future generations and their kids and their kids? And that's where we have to start. And that's what I've tried to highlight in a lot of my talks recently, is that we have to start at the very beginning, from as far back as we can go. And as far back as you can go as a person is essentially to your own health. And that's before pregnancy, ideally, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, what you're doing in the household while the kids are growing up. So we start right now with our own health as parents, as a husband, as a father, as a wife, as a mother. What can we do now to get healthy in order to have a healthy pregnancy and then a healthy child? So if you think about it, the health, you are the environment that child is going to be conceived in as an embryo, and then that they are going to be formed in for 9 months, and then they're going to be birthed into a home with an environment that you have created. And none of this is to create guilt and shame. This is to create awareness for us to know where can we do something specifically, rather than waiting for somebody out here to do something that's probably not going to do it, and they're certainly not going to do it in a timely manner. So I will go into more details as time goes on in other videos about how to do these things, but the bottom line is you need to start at the basic level. And so let's start right now by saying, what can we feed ourselves that will bring nourishment to our bodies, so that when we conceive a child and then are pregnant, or after pregnancy, during the child's growing up, they are getting that same nourishment in your body, but then also in the home as they're growing up and they're eating. So we need to get rid of processed foods. We need to get rid of having things that have processed vegetable oils in there. You need to stick with the oils that are good. It needs to be avocado oil, olive oil, some coconut oil, maybe some palm oil. Anything that has anything else in there, whether it's soybean or corn or safflower or vegetable oil, any of that stuff is garbage, and it is causing havoc on your system and then on your growing child. So it's getting rid of processed packaged foods, trying to eat whole foods that are simple, that have one ingredient. You know, if it has one ingredient, it's probably a relatively healthy food in general. We need to have higher protein intake, and we need to have much less carbohydrate intake. Most of those carbohydrates are processed carbs. A lot of those carbohydrates end up having chemicals on them, such as glyphosate, which is Roundup. So you're eating bread that's made from wheat that literally has glyphosate sprayed on it when it's harvested. And that's just one example of a chemical that's going to get into your body that you can prevent, that you can keep out by changing what you decide to put into your body. And one of the reasons that our kids are getting obese, that we're getting obese, they're getting obese partly because we're obese, but they are also getting it, and you are also having these problems because of chemicals that are out here in our environment. Some of them are called forever chemicals, PFAS. There's a lot of different ones. If you looked up endocrine disrupting chemicals, and I will talk about more of these in successive videos, but those chemicals are getting into our foods, they're getting into our water, they are in some of our cookware. So for example, one really, really simple thing that you can do is to get rid of all cookware that has anything that is non-stick. Just get rid of it. You want some stainless steel, sometimes the ceramics are okay. You really can make a big difference simply by cooking differently in that way. And so I'll just leave it here simply today for now. Consider what you're putting in your body prior to conception, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, and what you're feeding your kids. Is it processed food? Is it whole foods? Is it one ingredient foods? Is it something that has chemicals on it? And I will go into a lot more details about those later, but just for now, consider that, and we'll leave this one here. The goal is for us to get healthy because you matter, and for us to help our children get healthy because they matter. And this is what's going to end up changing the trajectory of the chronic diseases that they're getting onto a life of fullness and full health and optimal health. So I'll leave it here. Till then, next one, have a good day.